Ayanna stands before 30 restless cowboys, steam rising from her coffee pot like morning mist. The men don't know she understands every crude word they mutter about the half-breed cook. Behind her, Chenoa sits vacant-eyed on his weathered porch, the station owner who no longer recognizes his own beloved daughter. A lone rider approaches through the golden cottonwoods to Coda, trail-weary and exhausted, leading a limping horse. His strong Cherokee features mirror her own, but his dark eyes hold dangerous secrets that will shatter everything she believes about family, loyalty, and love. Coffee and fresh biscuits. Mister, she calls out warmly, unaware this mysterious stranger carries a blood-stained letter that will reveal the man she spent 3 devoted years caring for once destroyed an entire Cherokee village, including Dakota's own mother. The September morning sun casts long shadows across Clearwater Station. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. 3 years ago, Ayanna had arrived at Clearwater Station with Chenoa, believing him to be her beloved father suffering from war trauma. Her Cherokee mother had died when she was young, leaving Chenoa to raise her with stories of honor, family, and the importance of serving others with dignity. Now she'd built a life cooking for trail hands, cowboys, and settlers, 30 men daily who saw her mixed heritage as entertainment rather than humanity. Clearwater Station sat on prime land where 3 major trails converged, making it a natural stopping point for westward travelers. The location had become a target for land speculators as the railroad pushed steadily west, bringing new territorial laws and opportunities for those ruthless enough to seize them. Chenoa legally owned the property, but his deteriorating mind made him increasingly vulnerable to those who would exploit his condition. Ayanna ran everything now while fiercely protecting his dignity, creating comfort through her cooking cornbread that tasted like childhood memories, coffee that brought men together regardless of their prejudices, and stews that reminded weary travelers of home. She'd learned to navigate the crude comments and suspicious glances that followed her mixed heritage, finding strength in her mother's Cherokee teachings about resilience. 500 miles away, Dakota had spent the last 5 years searching for the truth about his mother's death during what officials called a land dispute that destroyed their Cherokee settlement. He carried a water-stained letter from a dying cavalry officer confessing a terrible truth: a civilian guide had led them to the wrong village, claiming Cherokee warriors were hiding stolen cattle. That guide's name was Chenoa. Meanwhile, land attorney Coda had been circling Clearwater Station like a vulture, using new territorial laws to claim abandoned or mentally incompetent holdings. He'd made increasingly bold offers to marry Ayanna in exchange for protecting the station, believing her naive about the land's true value. The railroad wanted this junction desperately, and Coda intended to profit from their desire. Adding to the complexity was 8-year-old Naeli, an orphaned Cherokee girl who had appeared last month, speaking little English but drawn to Ayanna's Cherokee lullabies. The child carried her own family secrets. Her parents had died in the same raid that killed Dakota's mother, making her arrival at Clearwater Station far more than mere coincidence. As September's golden light filtered through the cottonwoods, these separate threads of destiny were about to weave together in ways none of them could imagine. Dakota approached the station with careful dignity, his lame horse favoring its left foreleg. "Ma'am," he said, removing his worn hat, "I'm hoping to trade work for meals and shelter. My horse needs rest, and I'm handy with repairs." Ayanna studied his respectful manner, noting how it contrasted sharply with the crude cowboys lounging nearby. His Cherokee features reminded her of her own reflection, and something in his quiet strength put her at ease. "The roof's been sagging something fierce," she replied. "Can you handle that kind of work?" "Yes, ma'am. I know carpentry and horses both." The cowboys snickered among themselves. "Another tame Indian," one muttered loud enough to be heard, but Dakota's calm dignity and obvious skill with tools soon earned grudging respect as he began repairing the station's weathered boards. That evening, during shared meals on the wide porch, Ayanna and Dakota discovered unexpected common ground. When she hummed a Cherokee lullaby while serving coffee, his eyes lit with recognition. "My mother sang that same song," he said softly in Cherokee. You speak our language." Ayana's face brightened with genuine joy. Few people here understood her heritage beyond surface prejudices. Their conversation flowed naturally between Cherokee and English, covering medicinal plants, traditional stories, and songs their mothers had taught them. Little Nayeli emerged from her usual silence, speaking Cherokee freely for the first time since her arrival. Even Chenoa showed brief moments of clarity, recognizing familiar words though unable to place their significance. The peaceful evening shattered when Koda arrived with legal papers and renewed pressure. He dismounted theatrically, ensuring the gathered cowboys witnessed his performance. "Miss Ayana," he announced loudly, "I've come with a formal proposal of marriage. A woman of your circumstances needs a white man's name for protection under territorial law." The crude public proposal embarrassed Ayana before the assembled men. Several cowboys chuckled at her obvious discomfort as Koda pressed closer. "These new laws don't favor mixed blood claims," he continued, grabbing her arm roughly. "Marry me, and I'll protect what your father built here." Koda quietly stepped between them, his presence creating space without aggression. "The lady can speak for herself," he said calmly. "I can indeed," Ayana replied firmly, pulling free of Koda's grip. "And my answer is no. Mr. Koda, it was no yesterday. It's no today. And it'll be no tomorrow." Koda's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You'll regret this foolishness, girl. Protection ain't something you refuse lightly." That night, as the cowboys settled around their campfire, old prospector Wakiza pulled Koda aside with urgent whispers. "That girl don't know what her father really done. And that lawyer's been asking questions about Cherokee raids from years back. You best watch yourself, boy. Some truths cut deeper than any blade." When Koda played Cherokee flute songs by the dying fire, Chenoa became agitated, muttering fragments about burning and children screaming. He retreated inside abruptly, leaving Ayana confused and worried about his worsening condition. Later, as Ayana and Koda washed dishes together by lamplight, their hands touched over a coffee cup. The simple contact sent warmth through both of them. She realized she'd never felt this safe, this understood, this truly seen by any man. "Thank you," she whispered, "for standing with me today." "Any decent man would have done the same," Koda replied, though his voice carried deeper meaning. Neither knew they were touching across the chasm of their family's greatest tragedy. Their growing love built unknowingly on foundations of blood and betrayal that would soon threaten to destroy everything beautiful blooming between them. Over the following 5 days, Ayana and Koda developed a connection deeper than either had ever experienced. She taught him to read using her mother's worn cookbook, laughing as he struggled with measurements and ingredient names. "Tablespoon," she would say slowly, pointing to the faded writing. "Not tabletop." "Your mother's handwriting was beautiful," he observed, tracing the careful script. "Like yours?" In return, Koda shared Cherokee stories her mother had never told her, filling gaps in her cultural knowledge with tales of Grandmother Spider and the first fire. They created a private world within the public space of the busy station, speaking Cherokee softly while working side by side. Their growing intimacy didn't go unnoticed. Koda returned on September 23rd with a territorial marshal and ominous legal documents. His investigation had revealed troubling inconsistencies in Chenoa's military records. "Miss Ayana," the marshal announced formally, "we need proper documentation proving William Chenoa's legal right to this property. His service records appear incomplete." Koda smiled coldly, suggesting the man claiming ownership might not be who he says he is. "You have 2 weeks to produce acceptable proof, or face eviction proceedings." "Of course," Koda added with false concern. "Marriage to a legitimate landowner would resolve these complications immediately. My offer stands." The legal threat hung over the station like a gathering storm. Worse trouble erupted when trail boss Red discovered Ayana and Koda's obvious closeness. The grizzled cowboy exploded in racist fury after witnessing them sharing a quiet conversation in Cherokee. "We don't pay good money to eat food touched by Indian lovers," Red shouted. his voice carrying across the station. "Boys, pack up. We ain't staying where white women forget their place." The confrontation split the station's customers violently. Some supported Ayana's right to choose her companions, while others demanded she know her place in frontier society. The ugly scene revealed prejudices usually hidden beneath surface politeness. That evening, little Nayeli approached Ayana and Dakota as they sat together on the porch, her small face serious beyond her 8 years. "I remember more about the day my parents died," she whispered in broken English mixed with Cherokee. "There was a Cherokee man with white hair and sad eyes. He came to warn us about soldiers. Said they were looking for stolen horses. But when the soldiers came, he was with them, pointing toward our village." Dakota's blood ran cold. The description matched perfectly with what his dying cavalry friend had confessed years ago about their Cherokee guide. Late that night, a violent thunderstorm struck with unusual fury. Lightning illuminated the station in stark flashes while thunder shook the wooden walls. During the chaos, Chinoa suddenly emerged from his usual confusion into startling clarity. He found Ayana and Dakota taking shelter together in the barn, their obvious love evident in how naturally they moved around each other. His eyes focused with an awareness absent for months. "You remind me of your mother when she was young," he told Ayana clearly. "And you," he said to Dakota, "you have the look of the Lakota about you. There's been too much blood between our peoples. Too much pain." His voice carried terrible weight. "Some of us carry guilt that won't wash clean, no matter how hard we scrub." Before they could question his sudden lucidity, Chinoa collapsed back into confusion, leaving them with more questions than answers. But his brief clarity had been enough to worry Ayana deeply about his deteriorating condition, searching his room for medical supplies during his collapse. Ayana discovered a hidden military correspondence box beneath his bed. Inside lay commendations for civilian guide services and a blood-stained letter bearing the signature William H. Chinoa, Cherokee Scout. The dates matched exactly with the time frame of Dakota's and Nayeli's family tragedies. When Dakota saw the name on the military documents, recognition hit him like a physical blow. This was the name from his dying friend's confession, the Cherokee guide who had led soldiers to the wrong village, resulting in his mother's death. His face went white as the terrible truth crystallized. He had fallen completely in love with the daughter of the man he had sworn to find justice against. The gentle, confused old man Ayana tenderly cared for every day was responsible for destroying Dakota's entire family. "What's wrong?" Ayana asked, seeing his stricken expression. Dakota faced an agonizing choice: reveal the truth and destroy Ayana's world, or stay silent and betray his sacred oath to his mother's memory. His hands shook as he held the damning evidence. "There are some truths that love can't survive," he said finally, his voice barely audible above the storm's fury. He walked away into the rain, leaving Ayana holding the mysterious papers, her heart breaking without understanding why. For 3 agonizing days, Dakota avoided Ayana while wrestling with his conscience. He watched her gentle care of Chinoa from a distance, preparing special meals for his failing appetite, reading to him from her mother's Bible, protecting his dignity when customers made cruel comments about his condition. Her devotion made Dakota's mission of vengeance feel like planned cruelty against an innocent woman. Every kindness Ayana showed Chinoa cut deeper into Dakota's heart. She would adjust the old man's blanket with infinite patience, speak to him in Cherokee even when he didn't respond, and defend his confused rambling when others grew irritated. How could he destroy the world of someone so purely good? But the weight of his mother's memory pressed equally hard. She had died believing her own people had betrayed her. Dakota carried her dying words: "Find the truth, my son. Make them answer for Cherokee blood." Confused by Dakota's sudden coldness after their growing intimacy, Ayana finally confronted him behind the woodshed on September 29th. Her eyes blazed with determination that reminded him powerfully of his own mother. "I've never felt love before," she said firmly, "and I refuse to let it disappear without explanation." My mother taught me Cherokee women fight for what matters. You matter to me. Her words echoed what Dakota's mother had once told him about fighting for family, making the irony even more painful. Some fights can't be won, he replied, unable to meet her eyes. That's not the Cherokee way, Ayanna insisted. We endure, we survive, we protect what we love. Old Wakiza became Dakota's unlikely confidant, listening to his dilemma without judgment as they worked together repairing fence posts. The grizzled prospector possessed unexpected wisdom beneath his rough exterior. Truth's like mining, Wakiza observed, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. Sometimes you got to dig through a lot of pain to find what's valuable underneath, but you can't build a life on buried lies, neither. He suggested there might be more to Chenoa's story than military records revealed. War makes liars out of everybody, son. Official papers don't always tell the whole tale. Meanwhile, the cultural divide at the station deepened daily. Red's trail crew had departed as promised, taking their money with them. Other cowboys began questioning whether Indian loving affected food quality, making crude jokes about Ayanna's cooking being tainted by her romantic choices. Maybe she's putting Cherokee magic in the beans, one cowboy snickered. Ayanna faced the harsh reality that her interracial romance threatened not just her heart, but her livelihood. Yet she refused to let prejudice dictate her choices, serving meals with quiet dignity despite increasingly cruel comments. Through Cherokee language lessons with both Dakota and Ayanna, little Nayeli began processing her trauma more openly. She drew pictures of her family's last day, providing details that confirmed Dakota's worst suspicions, while also revealing something unexpected. Her parents had spoken kindly of the Cherokee man who warned them. He cried when he pointed toward our camp, Nayeli said in Cherokee. His tears were real. Dakota exploited the station's troubles masterfully, spreading rumors about Chenoa's questionable military service and Ayanna's loose morals while positioning himself as the respectable solution. He brought witnesses claiming Chenoa had been unstable even during active army service. A half-breed woman running a station alone, he told potential customers, ain't natural nor safe. Business dropped to dangerous levels, threatening the station's survival even with legal ownership secure. One evening, while organizing Chenoa's few possessions, Ayanna discovered her Cherokee mother's recipe book contained margin notes in two different handwritings, her mother's delicate script and Chenoa's stronger hand. The notes revealed deep affection and shared cooking sessions. Add more honey, she loves sweetness, Chenoa had written beside a cornbread recipe. He laughs when I make these too spicy, her mother had noted about Cherokee fry bread. The evidence proved their relationship had been genuine love, not mere convenience, strengthening Ayanna's determination to protect Chenoa's memory and dignity. The local community split visibly over the controversy. Decent settlers and cowboys who appreciated Ayanna's years of honest service organized a barn raising to show support, bringing supplies and labor to improve the station. Simultaneously, Dakota's supporters organized a petition questioning her moral fitness to serve food to respectable travelers. Working quietly with Wakiza, Dakota investigated Cherokee military service records in the territorial archives. They discovered that Chenoa had volunteered as a scout specifically to protect Cherokee villages from random military raids. He had been trying to build bridges between two worlds, not betray his people. Look at this. Wakiza pointed to an official commendation. Says here he warned 3 villages about planned raids, probably saved dozens of lives. Through careful investigation, they pieced together a different truth. Chenoa had been ordered to guide soldiers to a village allegedly harboring horse thieves. Believing he was protecting his people by cooperating with legitimate law enforcement, he had led them to what intelligence reports claimed was an empty camp. But corrupt officers had received false information and attacked innocent families, including children. Chenoa's current mental state apparently stemmed from overwhelming guilt over his unknowing role in the massacre. He had tried to protect his people but became an unwitting instrument of their destruction. When Ayanna overheard customers debating whether half-breeds deserved the same rights as real Americans, she faced her own moment of testing. Instead of hiding her heritage to keep peace, she proudly served a traditional Cherokee feast, educating patrons about native culture through food and stories. This is Canucci, she announced, serving hickory nut soup. Cherokee women have made this for 1,000 years. It sustained our grandmothers through winters harder than any you've faced. Her courage impressed even some skeptics, showing strength rather than subservience, unable to bear the emotional distance any longer. Dakota and Ayanna met by moonlight beside the old cottonwood tree that shaded the station. Its ancient branches had witnessed decades of frontier struggles and survival. "I choose love over safety," Ayanna declared with fierce certainty. "I'd rather face any truth with you than live any lie without you." They kissed for the first time beneath the silver moonlight, committing to face whatever revelation awaited them together. The kiss tasted of hope and fear, love and approaching sorrow. "Tomorrow I tell you everything," Dakota promised against her lips. "Everything. Then tomorrow we face it together," she whispered back. Neither realized that tomorrow would test whether love truly could survive the deepest wounds history could inflict. The next morning brought Coda's most devastating assault. He arrived with 3 territorial officials, a court clerk, and a leather satchel full of legal documents. Behind them rode 2 federal marshals, their badges glinting in the October sunlight. "Miss Ayanna," the lead official announced formally, "we have a court order questioning both William Chenoa's mental competency and his legal right to this property." Coda stepped forward with theatrical confidence. "Additionally, we've discovered your companion here is wanted for questioning regarding tribal uprisings." He produced a wanted poster bearing Dakota's likeness. "One Dakota Running Bear, sought by territorial authorities for inciting Cherokee resistance." The gathered crowd of cowboys, settlers, and station guests murmured nervously. Ayanna felt the ground shifting beneath her feet as Coda pressed his advantage. "Marry me immediately," Coda demanded, "and I'll ensure these legal complications disappear. Refuse, and face arrest, eviction, and complete ruin." Word spread quickly through the small frontier community like wildfire across dry grass. People arrived from neighboring homesteads, drawn by news of the confrontation. They faced a stark choice: support Ayanna's right to love whom she chose and keep her property, or bow to legal pressure and social prejudice. The station's wide porch became crowded with supporters and opponents, creating a tense standoff. Cowboys who had eaten Ayanna's food for years stood beside settlers she had helped through difficult times, but others whispered about maintaining proper order and knowing one's place. In the midst of this chaos, something miraculous occurred. The stress and familiar voices speaking Cherokee triggered Chenoa's most lucid episode in months. For the first time in over a year, his eyes cleared completely, and recognition dawned across his weathered face. "Ayanna," he whispered, his voice stronger than it had been in months. "My daughter, my precious girl." She rushed to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Papa, are you really here?" "I'm here, child. And I remember." His gaze found Dakota, standing tense and ready for arrest. "You're Lakota, your mother. She had eyes like yours, eyes that trusted when they shouldn't have." With Ayanna, Dakota, and little Nayeli gathered around him, Chenoa began speaking the truth he had carried for 5 years. His voice gained strength with each word, as if confession itself was healing his damaged mind. "I became a scout to protect our people," he began, his Cherokee accent growing stronger as clarity returned. "Too many innocent villages were being raided because soldiers didn't understand the difference between hostile warriors and peaceful families." The crowd pressed closer, sensing they were witnessing something significant. "They told me there were horse thieves in a Cherokee camp. Said they had proof, witnesses. I thought if I guided them, I could make sure only the guilty were punished." His voice broke. But there were no stolen horses, no guilty warriors, only families trying to survive. Dakota's hands clenched into fists, but Ayanna's touch on his arm kept him still. "When I realized we'd been fed lies, I tried to warn the villages. I rode ahead, shouted warnings, but the soldiers moved too fast. By the time I reached your camp," he looked directly at Dakota, "the shooting had started. Nayeli stepped forward bravely, her small voice carrying clearly in the hushed crowd. "He saved my grandmother," she said in English. "The Cherokee man pulled her behind a wagon. That's why I lived." Chenoa's weathered face was wet with tears. "I tried to stop it, but one man against a cavalry unit. I could only save who I could save." Faced with the complete truth that Chenoa had been a victim of military corruption rather than a willing betrayer, Dakota stood at the crossroads of his entire adult life. The man before him wasn't the monster he had imagined, but another casualty of the same injustice that had killed his mother. Ayana's obvious love for Chenoa, his genuine remorse, and the evidence of his attempts to protect Cherokee lives helped Dakota see that some wounds could only heal through letting go of vengeance. "My mother's name was Winona," Dakota said quietly. "She died believing her own people had betrayed her." "Winona of the Morning Light clan." Chenoa nodded. "She was planting corn when they rode down. I couldn't reach her in time. I'm sorry, son. I'm so very sorry." The crowd watched in stunned silence as Dakota made his choice. Instead of attacking the man responsible for his mother's death, he knelt beside Chenoa's chair. "She would want me to honor life, not death," Dakota said. "She would want forgiveness, not revenge." The simple act of mercy broke the crowd's tension like thunder breaks a storm. Decent members of the community Cowboys who had eaten Ayana's food, settlers she had helped through illness, even one of the federal marshals who had witnessed her character began speaking up against Coda's bullying tactics. "This woman's fed my crew for 2 years, called out Trail Boss Murphy. "Never cheated nobody, never turned away a hungry man." "She nursed my wife through fever," added settler James Wright. "Don't care what color her skin is, she's got more Christian charity than most church folk." Old Wakiza surprised everyone by producing official land documents from his saddlebags. Chenoa's purchase was legitimate and properly witnessed. "I should know I was one of the witnesses." Little Nayeli found courage to address the crowd in careful English. "The Cherokee man tried to save my family. He cried real tears. Bad men told him lies. But his heart was good." Her brave testimony swayed even some of Coda's supporters, proving that truth spoken by an innocent child carried more weight than legal manipulation. When Coda realized legal pressure was failing, he attempted to physically seize Ayana's arm to drag her away for a forced ceremony. Dakota intervened, but instead of violence, he challenged Coda's cowardice in front of the assembled community. "Only weak men force women who've refused them," Dakota said loudly. "Only cowards use law to steal what they can't earn honestly." The crowd's murmur of agreement made it clear they wouldn't tolerate such behavior, forcing Coda to release Ayana and step back. His face flushed with humiliation. In his moment of perfect clarity, Chenoa understood the legal vulnerability his condition created. With hands steadier than they had been in months, he signed a legal document transferring full ownership of Clearwater Station to Ayana, making her the undisputable legal owner. "What's mine is yours, daughter," he said clearly. "What's yours is yours alone." The crowd erupted in cheers as Coda's scheme collapsed completely, leaving him standing empty-handed before the united community. The emotional stress of his confession and the legal confrontation triggered Chenoa's final, irreversible mental collapse. Within hours of signing over the station, he retreated into a state deeper than any before, no longer recognizing Ayana or responding to familiar voices. His brief clarity had burned out like a candle's last flicker, leaving only darkness behind. The territorial doctor confirmed everyone's worst fears after examining Chenoa's vacant stare and unresponsive condition. "I'm sorry, Miss Ayana. His mind is leaving permanently this time. The effort of that lucid episode appears to have exhausted whatever reserves he had left." Ayana faced the cruel irony of losing her father just as she had finally learned the complete truth about their relationship and his character. She sat beside his rocking chair each evening, speaking Cherokee words that no longer sparked any recognition in his empty eyes. Despite their victory over Coda's legal maneuvering, the controversy had inflicted serious damage on the station's reputation. Many cowboys and settlers, while personally fond of Ayanna, proved unwilling to challenge social prejudice publicly. They quietly chose other stops along the trail rather than associate themselves with the Indian trouble. Business dropped to dangerously low levels, threatening the station's survival even with clear legal ownership. The dining room that once bustled with 30 daily customers now echoed with emptiness, filled only with the sounds of Ayanna's lonely footsteps and Chenoa's occasional meaningless muttering. Although Dakota had forgiven Chenoa, he struggled with overwhelming guilt over the 5 years he had spent planning revenge against a man who was himself a victim. His quest for justice had become its own form of injustice, and he questioned whether his love for Ayanna was somehow tainted by this dark history. "Maybe I should leave," he told Ayanna one gray October morning. "My presence here brings you nothing but trouble. These people might accept you again if I disappeared." "Don't you dare," Ayanna replied fiercely, but she could see the doubt eating away at his confidence and joy. With Chenoa mentally absent, business declining, and Dakota withdrawing emotionally, Ayanna faced her deepest loneliness since childhood. She continued cooking elaborate meals for the handful of remaining guests, but the work felt hollow without purpose or community. The woman who had once fed 30 men daily now sometimes cooked for only 3 or 4. Little Nayeli, traumatized by the legal confrontations and Chenoa's dramatic decline, began withdrawing again into frightened silence. She feared that speaking the truth about her parents' death had somehow caused Chenoa's collapse. In the cruel logic of a damaged child's mind, she blamed herself for disrupting the peaceful family she had found at the station. "I shouldn't have talked," she whispered to Ayanna in Cherokee. "My words hurt the grandfather." As autumn deepened toward winter, the approaching season made the station's survival increasingly critical. Without steady income from travelers, they lacked resources to maintain adequate heat, preserve food supplies, and provide basic shelter through the harsh frontier winter that was already showing its teeth in morning frost. The community that had supported them emotionally during the legal crisis could not provide enough business to sustain them economically. Good intentions and moral support couldn't purchase firewood or replace the income from departed trail crews. In early November, Coda made one final, calculated approach. He arrived alone this time, without legal threats or public confrontation, carrying what appeared to be a genuinely generous offer. "Miss Ayanna," he said respectfully, removing his hat, "I've come to make you a fair business proposition. I'll buy Clearwater Station for full market value, enough money for you to start fresh wherever you choose." His offer was substantial, reflecting the land's true worth with the coming railroad development. For someone facing financial ruin and winter hardship, it represented genuine security. "Consider your circumstances," Coda continued reasonably. "You're struggling to maintain a business with declining customers. Your father requires care you can't afford. That little girl needs stability. This money would solve every problem you're facing." The cruel logic of his argument was undeniable. Ayanna could use the money to secure proper medical care for Chenoa, provide Nayeli with education and stability, and free Dakota from the burden of supporting a failing enterprise. The decision tormented her because both choices carried terrible costs. Keeping the station honored her parents' memory but threatened everyone's survival. Selling guaranteed security but destroyed everything her mother and Chenoa had built with their love and sacrifice. On a bitter November night, as Ayanna sat alone with Chenoa's unresponsive form and counted their dwindling savings by lamplight, she reached her breaking point. Around her, the station creaked with emptiness. The kitchen that once rang with laughter and conversation had become a monument to fading dreams. Everything her mother and Chenoa had built seemed destined for failure despite their victories over prejudice and legal manipulation. Love, truth, and justice had proved insufficient against economic reality and social pressure. With tears freezing on her cheeks, Ayanna drafted a letter accepting Coda's offer, her hand trembling as she wrote the words that would end everything. Before Ayanna could send her letter of surrender to Coda, old Wakiza appeared at her door with an unexpected urgency that stopped her trembling hand. The grizzled prospector's usual casual demeanor had transformed into something far more serious and purposeful. "Put down that pen, girl," he said gently but firmly, "before you make any decisions that can't be undone. There's something you need to know about me." Something I should have told you months ago. Wakiza settled into Chenoa's empty rocking chair, his weathered hands folding over a leather portfolio Ayana had never seen before. I ain't just a prospector wandering the territory looking for gold. Haven't been for years. Truth be told. He opened the portfolio, revealing official documents and bank drafts that made Ayana's eyes widen. I'm an investor, child. Been quietly testing the character of frontier communities for a Boston investment group. We're looking for partnerships with people who have integrity, vision, and the courage to build something lasting. Dakota emerged from the shadows where he had been listening, his expression cautious but interested. I've watched this station for 8 months, Wakiza continued, impressed by your character and how this community responded during the recent crisis. Most places, folks would have folded under that kind of pressure. But you people showed something rare out here, real backbone. He spread architectural drawings across the kitchen table, plans that took Ayana's breath away. What I'm proposing is revolutionary for the frontier, a cultural bridge where Native American and white travelers can meet in safety and understanding. Educational programs, cultural exchanges, authentic Cherokee cuisine drawing visitors from across the territory. The drawings showed an expanded station with separate buildings for dining, lodging, and cultural demonstrations. There were spaces for Cherokee language classes, traditional craft workshops, and historical education programs. The railroad's coming through here within 2 years, Wakiza explained. They need a station owner they can trust to handle the increasing traffic. Your proven character in this location make it valuable beyond simple land speculation. Ayana stared at the plans, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. But the customers we've lost, the prejudice. That controversy proved your moral courage, Wakiza interrupted. Progressive travelers, educators, government officials, they're specifically seeking places like this. Word's already spreading about the Cherokee woman who stood up to corruption. As if summoned by their conversation, supportive community members began arriving throughout the day. Cowboys who had remained silent during the legal confrontation now volunteered labor for improvements. Settlers brought supplies and offered skills. The very controversy that had almost destroyed them was becoming proof of their integrity, attracting visitors who valued justice over prejudice. Railroad companies been seeking reliable station owners they can partner with long-term, announced Samuel Wright, a settler who had quietly gathered information. They want cultural stability, not just profit. Your reputation's reaching territorial headquarters. Dakota found his voice, excitement replacing the guilt that had plagued him for weeks. My Cherokee heritage, combined with my understanding of white society, could help create real understanding between communities. His eyes lit with possibility. My mother's death could gain meaning through preventing future conflicts born of ignorance. Little Nayeli, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, stepped forward with newfound confidence. I could teach Cherokee language to visitors, she said in careful English. Help them understand my people's real stories, not the lies they tell about us. Her transformation from traumatized orphan to confident cultural ambassador exemplified the station's potential for healing rather than harm. Her traumatic experience was becoming strength as she helped others understand Cherokee history and culture. Even Chenoa, in his diminished state, contributed to the vision. Though he no longer spoke coherently, he responded to Cherokee music and familiar foods with obvious peace. His presence became a powerful teaching tool about the costs of historical injustices while demonstrating the possibility of dignity and care for society's most vulnerable members. His military records, properly understood, prove Cherokee loyalty rather than betrayal, Wakiza noted. We'll make sure history remembers him correctly. The new model took shape quickly once the community understood the vision. Clearwater Station would evolve into the first integrated cultural center on the Frontier Trail. White travelers would learn authentic Cherokee history, traditions, and cuisine while Cherokee visitors found safe haven and economic opportunities. It represented proof that mutual understanding could be more profitable than prejudice. Personal transformations blossomed alongside the business plans. Ayana grew from a hidden Cherokee woman into a proud cultural ambassador. no longer apologizing for her heritage but celebrating it openly. Dakota transformed from a vengeance-seeking warrior into a bridge-building educator, his anger channeled into positive change. The territorial government wants to support this officially, Wakiza revealed, producing another set of documents. They're offering protection as a cultural resource essential to peaceful frontier expansion. Koda's legal challenges collapsed completely when territorial officials recognized the station's value to regional development. Instead of being vulnerable to land speculation, Clearwater Station became officially protected as a vital community resource. The corrupt attorney found himself facing investigation for his fraudulent schemes. "You can't stop progress," one official told Koda bluntly. "And this kind of progress serves everyone's interests better than your schemes." With their future secure and their purpose clear, Ayanna and Dakota began planning a Cherokee wedding ceremony that would honor both their heritage and their hope for the future. Their love story was becoming symbolic of broader possibilities for understanding across racial and cultural divides. "This is what my mother would have wanted," Dakota said, holding Ayanna close as they watched sunset paint the mountains gold. "Not revenge, but reconciliation. Not hatred, but healing." The station buzzed with excitement as word spread about the cultural center plans. Visitors began arriving specifically to experience authentic Cherokee hospitality and learn about Native American perspectives on frontier development. Ayanna's cookbook of traditional recipes was already being prepared for publication, the first Cherokee cookbook to be distributed widely across the territory. Orders were arriving from distant cities where people hungered for authentic cultural understanding. "We're not just preserving the past," Ayanna told a visiting newspaper reporter. "We're building a future where different peoples can learn from each other instead of fighting." As November's chill gave way to December's promise, Clearwater Station had transformed from a struggling way station into a beacon of hope for peaceful coexistence. The place that had nearly been destroyed by prejudice and greed was becoming a model for the entire frontier. Standing together beneath the old cottonwood tree where they had first kissed, Ayanna and Dakota watched their dream taking solid shape. Around them, the sounds of construction, planning, and hopeful conversation filled the air with promise for tomorrow. On a crisp December morning, beneath the golden cottonwood tree that had witnessed their first kiss, Ayanna and Dakota were married in a ceremony that blended Cherokee traditions with frontier customs. Wakiza served as honored grandfather, his weathered hands steady as he performed the ancient binding ritual. Little Nayeli scattered wildflower petals preserved from autumn's harvest, her face glowing with joy. Even Chenoa seemed aware of the celebration, his vacant eyes focusing briefly on the happy sounds around him. Cowboys, settlers, Cherokee visitors, and territorial officials attended together, creating the kind of integrated community gathering that had once seemed impossible. The wedding became proof of what Clearwater Station represented, a place where different worlds could meet in harmony. "By Cherokee law and frontier justice," Wakiza declared, "you are bound in love, hope, and sacred purpose." That winter, surrounded by the sounds of happy voices speaking Cherokee and English in equal measure, Chenoa passed away quietly in his sleep. Snow fell gently outside as his spirit found peace. No longer burdened by guilt or confusion, his funeral became a celebration of his true character, a man who had tried to protect his people and succeeded in raising a daughter who continued that mission. Territorial officials restored his military honors, acknowledging his genuine service as a protector rather than betrayer of Cherokee communities. His headstone read simply, "William Chenoa, beloved father, faithful scout, bridge builder." By spring 1874, Clearwater Station had become famous throughout the territory. The cultural exchange program drew visitors from distant cities, all eager to learn authentic Cherokee culture from people who lived it daily. Stagecoaches arrived weekly, bringing teachers, government officials, and families seeking education rather than just rest. Ayanna's cookbook of traditional Cherokee recipes became the first published Cherokee cookbook distributed across the frontier territories. Orders flooded in from eastern cities where people hungered for authentic cultural understanding. Her recipes carried more than ingredients, they carried stories, traditions, and bridges between worlds. 9-year-old Nayeli had grown into a confident young teacher, fluent in Cherokee, English, and Spanish, deeply knowledgeable about both Cherokee history and white frontier culture. She corresponded with children in Boston and Philadelphia, sharing stories that helped them understand the real people behind harmful stereotypes. Cherokee children play games just like you do, she wrote to a class in Massachusetts. We laugh, learn, and dream about our futures too. Dakota embraced his role as traveling cultural ambassador, visiting schools, military posts, and government offices throughout the territory to share Cherokee perspectives on frontier development. His mother's death was memorialized not through violence, but through education that prevented similar tragedies born of ignorance and fear. The cowboys and settlers who had supported Ayanna and Dakota during their crisis became advocates for fair treatment of Native Americans throughout their travels. Their example spread the revolutionary idea that diversity strengthened rather than threatened frontier communities. Trail bosses began seeking out integrated stations, finding them more peaceful and profitable. Clearwater Station's success proved that cultural understanding could be economically beneficial. Other frontier businesses adopted similar models, creating a network of integrated stations along major trails. Prejudice became not just morally wrong, but economically disadvantageous, as progressive travelers chose businesses that reflected their values. In April 1874, Ayanna and Dakota's first child was born, a daughter they named Wachiwi, meaning dancing, for the joy she brought to their integrated community. Her birth symbolized hope for a generation that would grow up with understanding rather than hatred between cultures. Their story spread through newspaper articles and personal letters, inspiring mixed heritage families across the frontier to embrace rather than hide their identities. The Clearwater Station model influenced territorial policy regarding Native American relations, proving that cooperation worked better than conflict. Wakiza finally revealed his deepest secret. He had been a Union officer who witnessed the Cherokee massacre years earlier, powerless to stop the injustice. His investment in the station represented his own quest for redemption through supporting justice and healing. His substantial wealth ensured the cultural center's permanent funding for generations. Some wounds can only heal when we choose love over revenge, he told Ayanna while holding baby Wachiwi. You and Dakota proved that truth. The story reached its perfect circle one golden evening as spring warmed into summer. Ayanna sat on the porch teaching her baby Cherokee lullabies while Dakota repaired the cottonwood tree swing for visiting children. 12-year-old Nayeli led a group of young visitors in traditional Cherokee dancing, her voice strong and sure as she explained each movement's meaning. The sounds of multiple languages, shared laughter, and cultural exchange filled the air like music. As the sun set behind the mountains, 3 generations gathered on the wide porch, Ayanna holding her daughter, Dakota carving a Cherokee welcome sign for the station entrance, and Nayeli reading Cherokee stories to fascinated children from 3 different cultures. The scene embodied the healing power of love, truth, and community working together against the forces of hatred and division. As darkness brought its gentle peace, Ayanna whispered to baby Wachiwi, the same words her Cherokee mother had once whispered to her, "You are loved, you belong, and you will make the world more beautiful." The cycle of love and acceptance continued, proving that even the deepest historical wounds could heal through courage, truth, and understanding. Clearwater Station had become a symbol of what was possible when people chose love over fear, understanding over prejudice, and cooperation over conflict. The station now served 30 travelers daily, but they came seeking more than food and shelter. They came seeking hope and healing for a wounded world. Ayanna and Dakota's journey teaches us that true family is built through love, not blood, and that gratitude for what we have heals us far more than seeking revenge for what we've lost. Their story reminds us that the bridges we build between different communities are stronger than the walls prejudice tries to construct. The greatest lesson lies in how they transform pain into purpose. Instead of letting historical wounds fester into hatred, they chose to create something beautiful from their suffering. Ayanna's gratitude for Chenoa's love, despite learning the painful truth about his past, shows us that forgiveness doesn't excuse wrongdoing. It frees us to build a better future. Their success at Clearwater Station proves that when we embrace our full heritage with pride rather than shame, we create space for others to do the same. The community that rallied around them demonstrates that decent people will stand up for justice when given the chance, even when it requires courage. Most powerfully, their choice to educate rather than retaliate shows that love truly can triumph over the deepest historical injustices. Through their cultural center, they ensured that future generations would inherit understanding instead of hatred. Have you ever faced prejudice or been wrongly judged because of your background, like Ayana endured with those cruel comments about being a half-breed? How did you find the strength to overcome such injustice?